Messenger's Self-Storage Webinar Series. I'm Poppy Behrens, publisher at MiniCo, and we're happy to have you in the audience today. If you're joining us for the first time, this is one of several informative webinars planned for self-storage owners, operators, managers, investors, developers, and other industry professionals. Today's webinar, Spend Some Time with the Sales Coaches, is sponsored by PhoneSmart, a sales support and call center serving self-storage businesses throughout North America. PhoneSmart has created more than 750,000 reservations and leads for its self-storage clients in its 10 years of business. Our presenter is Tron Jordheim, Director of Operations for PhoneSmart and the founder of one of my favorite events, PhoneSmart's Hawaii Unconference, an annual gathering of self-storage VIPs, of course, in Hawaii. This year marks the 31st anniversary of the Mini Storage Messenger, providing the self-storage industry with in-depth news and information. We also publish a variety of other self-storage educational and data sources, such as those you see listed on your screen. For more information about any of these products, please feel free to give us a call or visit ministoragemessenger.com. We invite you to submit questions today throughout the webinar. To do so, simply type your question into the question area and click Send. We will try to answer all questions depending on time, and those that cannot be answered due to time constraints will be answered by Tron and his team once the webinar has concluded. The webinar is being recorded and will be available for viewing on demand from our archives at ministoragemessenger.com. And now I'd like to turn the presentation over to Tron. Good morning, Tron.
Good morning, Poppy, and thank you so much for letting us talk to all of the folks out there who are tuning in from self-storage land. And we're glad that you chose to spend some time with the sales coaches today. One of the things that really sets PhoneSmart apart from a lot of organizations is the amount of time and effort we spend on training and coaching. And we started really devoting a lot of time to training and coaching probably 7 years ago, as it got more and more complicated to rent self-storage over the phone. As customers got more and more savvy, as the business got more crowded and overbuilt. And now we're to the point where every day there's a new challenge to our coaching and training routines, and we like to rise to that occasion whenever we can. So with that in mind, let me get the session started, and I'll introduce you to our coaches. So Poppy's already introduced me, and it's my honor then to introduce the rest of the group here. First, let me introduce you to Robin Turner. She's our sales manager, and she's been here at PhoneSmart for more than 10 years and has some great sales experience in a variety of different call center environments. Robin, what do you think the one big challenge is in self-storage that you really haven't seen in other places?
I think the challenge is just really listening to the customer and finding out what their interests and their needs are for finding a specific storage unit. It could be from location to just the type of storage unit. It just really varies on what it is that they're actually looking for.
Well, so I think it might be interesting for you who are listening to hear that the biggest concern of salespeople is listening, and so that maybe gives you a hint there. Let me introduce you next to Julie Baka, and she is our trainer, and she's responsible for making sure that all the new sales reps coming in get up on their feet in one piece, and then she helps us retrain any new systems that we're working on or new campaigns. And I put up here that Julie is the master of the feel, felt, found. Julie, why don't you explain what I'm talking about?
Feel, felt, found is a technique to overcome concern. And it's such a simple concept because it doesn't really matter what concern a caller has. You can simply say, I understand how you feel. Others have felt that way as well. And what we have found is our facility can take care of your needs. So it's just a very simple three-step process that can overcome any concern. So when you get stumped and you don't know how to overcome a concern, you can always fall back on your trusty feel, felt, found.
And we hear people using that in various shapes and forms all day long on the phone, and it sure does work. Next, I'll introduce you to Joel Little, and he's our head sales coach. And so it's up to Joel to spend time down on the field, if you will, with the rest of the coaches, helping to make sure that our sales reps get all the support and training and advice that they need. Joel, tell me a little bit about how you've been able to turn some skeptical clients into fans.
Well, we always have found when we get new clients, they come in typically with a lot of their best practices that they want to pass on to us, of course. And we definitely love all the insight, and we've definitely over the years have found that we have a system and we seem to do really well with our system. So with that system, we seem to start to turn people into fans when they start to listen to our process. They start to see the leads coming in. They start to see the more renters they are getting from the way we do our process. So we definitely like to see people coming in first, not digging what we do, but then we do win them over in the end.
And that's a great thing when you get a compliment from a client. So that is a wonderful time. Next, let me introduce you to Lucia Darnell, and she is the head of our Spanish operation. So she manages our bilingual and Spanish-only reps who handle calls not only for the U.S. and Canada, but also for clients in Mexico. She's also a member of the board of the Latin American Self-Storage Association and has been with PhoneSmart for quite some time. Lucia, tell us a little bit about some of the challenges you see in managing the bilingual calls, the difference between the English and the Spanish calls.
Well, first, there's different culture. So we have to use their same terminology when they're talking about storage, because storage in different countries have different names. Also, Spanish and bilingual reps are listening to customers that they demanding, and they are not used to the English sales technique. So we have to change and tweak that a little bit. And when the customer is listening how the rep explain their amenities when they're talking about a specific facility, they never heard that before probably when they call in other companies. So that is what makes us different.
And I think you raise a great point about being sensitive to the culture. And we find that whether we're taking calls from New York City or Toronto or San Antonio or Oakland, every place has a bit of a different culture that we have to be sensitive to. And that certainly is obvious between the English and the Spanish calls. Thank you, Lucia. Next, let me introduce you to Evan Griffith. And he's been with us more than 3 years now. And in that short time, he's not only become one of the sales coaches, but one of the supervisors as well. And so, Evan, tell us a little bit about some of the transitions you've seen here over the last couple of years.
Yeah, I've been a jack of all trades, I guess, if you would, since I've been here. Started out by doing the supervisor, and that was when we were in the old call center, smaller building. Now we've come to a larger building. Helped Joel out for a little bit with coaching as well. We tried that out with a lot of listening and, just trying to keep an eye on calls, and now come to a bigger call center where I get to do both, I guess.
Yes, well, and you mentioned the move we had a few years ago where we had the opportunity to build out a brand new call center from scratch, which was a wonderful thing to do and gave us lots of capabilities. And one of those was to make it easier to listen to more calls more frequently. And so now, as Robin suggests, we listen not only to the customer, but to us as well, I guess. So thank you, Evan. Next is Tim Shipman, and he's one of our sales coaches, and he's had a variety of sales positions over the years and has had quite a bit of success at that. Tim, tell us a little bit about how some of the sales techniques you've brought with you from other careers have helped you here with self-storage.
Okay. Well, every sales is a little bit different. In the past, I did a little bit more high-energy selling, which with storage, you really kind of have to tone it down, especially with the different cultures, as you were talking about. So, like, an East Coast person doesn't want to hear necessarily, typically, like a high-energy, happy salesman, or maybe that may work with some of the Midwest calls. But everything in sales is pretty simple as far as you want to be nice and pleasant to talk to, ask a lot of questions, and listen and react accordingly to the caller. And that kind of translates between all the different types of sales I've done.
Well, that's great, and I think you're right. That all ties together nicely. Next, let me introduce you to Nikkita Womack, and she's also been with us about 3 years and recently graduated at MU, so congratulations again. So tell us a little bit about your transition into the coaching role and how that sort of changed your view of the calls from that of being a rep.
Well, when I first came into the call center taking calls, didn't have too much experience, and then when I went through the training with Julie and sat down with Joel, a lot of the times I was able to get a little bit more information about it and to be able to capitalize on the information that I learned. And then when I actually got into the coaching area, I was able to open up and see the different variety of things that other employees were doing, to be able to take that and then also to help other representatives to be able to capitalize and help them on the phones with their other groups.
Well, thank you. So you raised an interesting point that all the reps have a bit of a different style and have some different needs in the coaching.
Yes, definitely.
That's a good thing to keep in mind. Next, I'll introduce you to Clarence Jones, and he's consistently one of our top sales reps and helps us with call quality evaluations, and has been here about 2 years now. Clarence, tell us a little bit about how you listen with a different ear now because of the work you've done on the call quality side.
I guess I could just say, like you said, I do a lot of the role plays for the managers with our ongoing training. It's helped me to see the different things that they face inside their store. Along with the role plays that we have them do, I'm able to kind of hear how they would do it at their store, which helps me also to react to their customers on the phone as well. By doing the role plays, I gather a lot more information on how a manager will handle their situation at their particular store.
Okay, well, I think you bring up a great point about role playing, and that's something that our seasoned reps don't necessarily do a lot of until they run into some glitches. But it is sure one of our best practices for training up new folks. With that in mind, Poppy, we've covered actually a lot of information there. And what I'd like to do is to invite all of you to meet us in person at the upcoming Self-Storage Association conference in Las Vegas. And as a matter of fact, we've got a special offer for the conference. If you'd like to spend 30 minutes with one of our sales coaches in a free consultation, go ahead and contact us. I think the contact information might be on the next slide there. And give us a call, 866-639-1715, and either that Tuesday or Wednesday of this trade show, we'd be glad to spend 30 minutes one-on-one talking with you about some of your challenges, some of your best practices, and you'd be welcome to pick our brains about what we do.
Tron, one thing that we get questions about a lot, you know, with the call centers, our managers will question, you know, how important is the follow-up? You know, what should they do in terms of follow-up? And maybe you could elaborate on that a little bit, because I know that your team puts a lot of effort into getting those reservations made, and it's important that the managers realize what they need to do as far as following up on their end.
Yes, and I'll answer a little bit of that, and then I'll pass it to Clarence because he does a lot of the role play on the follow-ups. But the follow-up is absolutely essential. Once we set up the reservation, that person is now about 3/4 of the way off the market, and a good follow-up call from the manager is going to make that person realize they made the right call and they're doing the right thing and seal the rental. Clarence, talk a little more about some of the importance of the follow-up. I know you coach on that quite a bit.
I feel that it's really important as far as follow-ups are concerned, just for the simple fact, to elaborate on what you said. We've already sold the facility to them. Most of the people that don't reserve are just not for sure at that time. A simple follow-up would just say,
hey, calling back, following up with the information that we've already provided, and 9 times out of 10, it's going to be a sale to close. It's good to follow up because you never know where that person is. Some people call 1-2 months ahead of time for storage, and just a simple follow-up will kind of give the manager an idea of where they're at, where they're going to be, instead of just letting the leads sit around, because most of the leads that we do send over to the managers do turn into sales.
Well, that's great. And the one thing I'll add to that is to make sure on the follow-up phone calls that you always refer to us as your colleagues, your assistants, and not the call center. Because making it a cohesive effort really makes that person feel comfortable. So you noticed everybody laughed when I said that. It's something we deal with on a day-to-day basis.
Well, Tron, I think the other thing that's interesting is that PhoneSmart is known as, the call center for the self-storage industry, and you guys really do more than that. You do more in terms of other training that you offer. So maybe you can talk a little bit about that.
Sure. One of the things we do is to offer sales training for our clients, and that really started organically a number of years ago as clients would come to us and say, hey, how come your conversion rates are better than ours? Or they'll listen to some of our phone calls because the clients can hear all the calls that we make, and they'll say, well, you guys have a great way of selling, but it doesn't sound like you're selling. It sounds like you're having a conversation. So how do we do that? So because of that, we have training programs available, and we're able then to help our clients not only increase their conversion rates, but really increase the confidence they have in their sales system. So that works very well. So just to give you some structure as to how to create your own coaching system, and you can do this whether you have 1 employee or 1 million employees, it doesn't really matter. So here's really the breakdown. The first thing is to put the team together, decide who's going to be on the team, why they're on the team, and what part of the team are they going to handle, and then develop the process. What's the who, what, when, where, how? When's it going to get done? Who's going to do it? How are you going to evaluate it? And so on. Then work on crafting the language so you have something to coach on. What's the technique? What are the phrases that you want to focus on? And then focus on that. And then set the standards. What are you trying to accomplish with the coaching team? Are you trying to make certain phrases widely used? Are you trying to increase conversion rates? What's your goal? Set that standard and then work towards it. And then lastly, which sometimes gets forgotten, is you've got to spend the time. If you're not actually taking the time to do the coaching and then follow up on the coaching, you'll end up starting lots of initiatives that never get finished, and it'll be frustrating for everyone. So let's talk about creating the team. Joel, why don't you tell us a little bit about your thoughts on putting a team together and how you have people in the right place?
I think it's essential to, first of all, find a number of people who are passionate about doing the coaching process. If you have people who are passionate about helping people, trying to get people to reach the goals that they either create themselves or goals have been established, I think you have a good start. And then you just need to make sure that that person is able to, one, also take coaching from either the head coach, supervisor, or whoever's out there. But creating a team is important based off how many people you have to coach in general. And then just make sure that the individual coach you have has the right amount of people under them so they're not overextending themselves, and be able to spend face-to-face time with them. So got to have the passion, the drive, and the coachability. I'll use that word, if that is a word, coachability, to be able to get the people to reach their goals and motivate them.
Okay, so how do you determine who coaches who then?
You can look at, like, what we do here is, really simple as the shifts they work, okay? Because we want to spend time, it's really hard to have somebody, a coach that works day shift, go with the night shift person. I mean, it's just that simple. So if you have one person that is able to connect with the rep, well, why not put those two together and see what happens? If they're not able to connect and help them exceeds their goals, well, let's try a different aspect, because not everybody's going to respond the best way to everybody.
So you're getting feedback from the reps on their coach, as well as you're getting the feedback from the coach on as far as the reps' performance.
Right, because you can definitely see from reporting, because it's very important to have some kind of reporting to where you can track the progress of the reps that's being coached. So if you see them excelling, fantastic, it looks like a good match. If you see them not really excelling or maybe going backwards now, we'll look at a couple different things. Is it the coaching process? Is it the rep? Then we need to find out what's really going on in that relationship.
Okay, great. So what we've done here is we've taken a group of, what do we have, 5 coaches basically, 6 now, and each one of them have a group under them, and we've created a group of standards and goals for everyone. And how we're measuring the creation of the team really is based on performance and conversion rates and so on. So what you can do in your business is decide, first of all, who needs the coaching. Certainly your frontline people, whoever has frontline contact with customers. And then who is going to provide the coaching. Now, certainly that can be outsourced, and we'd be glad to help you with that. But it's often done very effectively in-house by someone else who has the experience. Now, not everyone makes a great coach, so we have some top sales performers here who are not coaches because it's not their thing, it's not their interest. So I would caution you, be careful, don't take your best performer and say, you're the coach, without that person expressing an interest in being a coach, having some affinity for the coaching process, and then you've got to get them the help so they know how to coach. Joel, how much of your time do you think you spend coaching the coaches as opposed to coaching the reps?
Well, always have an open door policy. If my coaches have a question, please come back, we'll discuss it. So I would say, honestly, 80–85% of my time is devoted to really making sure my coaches have the tools they need to be able to help the coach them.
All right, so don't forget to coach your coaches.
Got to coach the coaches.
That's important too. Well, so does anyone have any questions out there about creating the team? I realize you all have a different set of circumstances, but you all have customers, that's for sure.
I don't have any questions that have come in so far regarding coaching the team. I think I have everybody so well trained that the questions come at the last 15 minutes of the webinar.
Well, then you've done a good job coaching your webinar.
There you go.
We salute you, yes.
If you do have any questions, please send them on through, and we will ask them as they come in.
Yes, thank you. So let's talk a little bit about developing the process. So Julie, a lot of your time, especially in the early parts of training, is helping people understand our call flow process and the technical process of how we go through and do reservations and so on. So give us an idea as to how someone can put some process in place to help them with their coaching and training.
I really believe it's important that whenever we start talking, especially to a newer employee or somebody who does not have a lot of self-theory in their background, that we go through and explain to them why we're doing the things we're doing. You know, to know that you have to ask the question, how soon do you need storage? That's an important question. But if the person on the other end of the phone doesn't understand why they're asking that question, it kind of gets lost and it loses its emphasis. But if they understand, they're asking, how soon do you need storage, so that they can then use that information to build rapport with the caller. You know, the caller tells you they need the storage today. Wow, you've got a totally different sales situation than the caller that says they don't need storage for 3 months. So it's about building that rapport. So you need to understand what your discovery questions are that you're asking. You need to understand that self-theory of the parts of a sales call so that you can move your caller through the process and close the individual pieces to actually get them committed to your facility. So that's what I do a lot with the new hires that come through PhoneSmart. We start talking about theory. This is how a cell is set up. Then we talk about individual questions and agreements. That is our goal in the call center. Then we talk about how to overcome concerns that people have throughout that process. And then we talk about good closing language, you know, staying away from yes-no questions and using alternative choice questions and things like that. So there's lots of theory that's really important, but it's really training all the parts of the sales process.
Well, I think one of the other important things that brings is when the process is in place, then people understand where they are on the phone call, and it also makes it easier to coach people where you can isolate one piece of the process that perhaps needs some improvement or needs some encouragement. Tim, tell us a little bit about how you use the fundamental process we put in place when you're coaching with some of your team members.
What, by fundamental process?
Well, how you take our beginning process of here's the sales theory, here's the parts of the phone call, and so on, and then how do you apply that when you're coaching with some of your team members?
Oh, okay. That's actually one of the major steps that I look at is, you know, don't skip steps throughout the call. So basically, I think what happens is once people get everything figured out, quote unquote, so to speak, they think they have everything figured out, and they got a better way to do it. They tend to start skipping steps. So they may skip one of the steps, like, and just jump straight to the price, but you got to go through each step. You got to sell the facility. And just to kind of touch on what I said earlier, listening and reacting accordingly, don't get so caught up in going from step to step. So, like, for example, when did you need this space? Well, I need it tomorrow. Do you know where we're located? And you kind of jump to the next step, as opposed to saying, oh, you need it tomorrow? Great, we'll see what we have available, and then you kind of go to the next step. So kind of react to the customer, and that kind of goes back to the more conversational approach that you're talking about, I think, too.
Well, and what I see as part of the challenge that we have here is many of our reps take 100 or sometimes even 150 calls a day, and to be able to maintain the discipline to go through the steps and maintain the process is sometimes challenging. And I think we often find falling back on process helps a lot.
Don, as you're talking about the different steps, for those managers that that don't have a call center and they're trying to take your advice on their own calls, a lot of times we hear that they do most of the steps, they follow through, but they're really intimidated by the close. Can you talk a little bit about closing techniques?
Sure. That would be great. Would you want to elaborate on that a little bit, Tim?
Well, I think the biggest two things, I don't know, like you can't be shy. You can't be timid at all with that. And so I think I kind of got rid of that over the years when it comes to the close. So, for example, I think the two things that you have to do there is figure out a way to be confident when you're asking for the sale, because they're going to be able to tell if you're confident or if you think they're going to say no. I mean, kind of an extreme example, but it's like, so this would be a bad close, by the way. Would you like to reserve the space, or, I mean, they're going to say, well, we'll just wait. They're going to say no. But if you create a sense of urgency and assume the sale, those two things, that's going to work a large percentage of the time. So something as simple as, you know, it looks like we're about sold out right now. The best thing I can do is go ahead and hold this space. Here's how we do that. Which card would you like to use? You know, it's no big deal. You're not really trying to sell them on the process of reserving as much as you are just telling them what we're going to do. Here, let's do this. We'll hold the space. That way it's here when you come in. Which card would you like to use?
I think another part of it as well is just from the time you pick up the phone, just start assuming the sale. Know the customer is going to rent from you now and today. Build conversation, build rapport, gain agreement from the customer from the beginning of the call. Ask yes questions, questions that you know they're going to say yes to. You know what I'm saying? Tim's my coach. I think he was referring to a situation from the other day, to be honest. But but that's what it's all about. It's all about once you get that customer to say yes, by the time you get ready to ask for that credit card reservation, they've said yes so much by the time that, you know, you get to that close, and they're like, okay, yeah. Before you know it, they're giving you the credit card number before they even know what happened. So I do believe from step one, down the 7-digit telephone number, saying, hello, this is manager from such and such. I think it's all about assuming that sale and asking yes questions where you can start gaining agreement from the customer.
Well, and I think we also have the luxury in self-storage that people are calling us because they have some need for more space, or they're moving or something. So they're not coming to us out of the blue and we're trying to sell them something they don't want. We have a solution that they're looking for, and the question is really, are they going to rent from us or rent from somebody else? And if you don't have the confidence in your property where you're proud to get a new customer, well, then you're going to have an underlying tone in your whole process, and people aren't going to rent from you. They're going to rent from Clarence or Tim instead. So if you have the confidence and just assume everyone you talk to is going to rent from you, that'll boost your conversion rates by about 10 points there. Nikkita, tell us a little bit about how you learned the concept of assuming the sale when you started here, and what impact did that have for you?
Yes, when I first started, I had no sales technique at all, and I was just didn't want to be pushy. But when I learned to kind of formulate the call and go for the sale and assume that, yes, you're selling the facility to the customer the best way that you can, and then when you sell it to them the best way that you can, then you can already assume that, yes, you sold this property the best way that you can, and they should say yes by the end of the call. So if you sold the facility, say it's a great rate for the area, and you're confident in the price and the facility, then you make that customer more confident in what you have to say. So when you go for the reservation, they're like, okay, you sold it to me, I'm ready to go.
I was just going to reiterate what Nikkita just said. I think one of the biggest things that managers that I coach, they want to give multiple prices to people. It's like they're scared of the price, so they give me 6 options. You're the storage expert. As the manager, you should be able to narrow down your options for this caller to 2 options at the most, and give them those 2 prices and be confident that they are the best prices in the area. That price is only $788 a month, and that is an awesome rate for the area. And if you say it like that, that caller is going to believe you, and they're not going to keep calling the next place in the phone book. But when you start giving me the laundry list of everything you have available with prices from everything from $10.99 to $199, I think, wow, I have a lot of options out there. I need to pick up the phone again and call the next place and see what their options are. So you need to take control of the call, be the expert, and be confident that the price you're giving them is the best price for your area.
And it's all about the value. If you believe in the value, then you can do it just as Julie suggests. Evan, tell us a little bit about how you see the process helping out people on your shift when you're the supervisor.
Sure. Yeah, at night shift it gets a little slower, so we try and keep people to where they're taking calls efficiently, making sure to cover everything. But yeah, on my shift, you do have to change a little bit at night. I've worked during the days personally, where I've worked on the morning shift. I've also worked midday shifts, and the callers are different types of days, or different time of day, rather. You know, in the morning you get people that are a little more organized, up, ready to go. You know, don't necessarily want to be sold as much sometimes. They want to go through the call quickly. Usually at night you get people that are off work, a little more laid back, you know, trying to get things out of the way, get it sorted out before they, you know, wind down for the night. So, you know, sometimes you can stall a little bit more with those people, or keep it a little more conversational, which, like you were saying earlier, is a big part, you know, what we like about our calls. But yeah, if you can keep that process going, flow through the call with conversation, you know, and then adjust to the caller for what type of day or who you're talking to, then, and be confident once you have, you can close the sale.
That kind of relates to one question that we've had come in. We have one attendee who asks, how many minutes do you normally allocate to a call?
It's just whatever it takes.
Yeah, pretty much.
I would say it just depends on the caller. I mean, I've had calls that last 17 minutes. Not saying that that's how long the call should last, but I was going to elaborate on what Evan said was flowing through the process. Just make a friend from the beginning of the call. Find something that you know that person likes. I mean, most of our calls here, I've been known to have short calls, well, but from talking with my coach, Tim, I've learned that a 4-minute call, you really don't get everything done. So usually somewhere between this, I would say a 6.5 to 8-minute call should be able to get you to gain agreement from that customer, build rapport with that customer, make a friend, somewhere between 6.5 to 8 minutes, I would say. But again, it just depends on the call. If you got one of those daytime callers that's ready to get through it, a 5-minute call would be great. If you got those customers that are trying to wind down and you do need to make a conversation, somewhere between 6, 8, maybe 10 minutes.
Right. Now, there's quick ones and there are long ones. And if it means a rental, then it was the correct amount of time you spent with them. So.
Right. And another thing we got to think about, too, if the customer calls and say, I'm ready to make a reservation or ready to make a rental, reserve or go ahead and rent the space. If they know what they need, that could be a 2-minute call. Mm-hmm. You're completely taking care of their needs. They need space right now, today. You're taking care of them, and it's a 2-minute call. So we got to also think about what the customer's needs are and get it done for them. So,
go ahead. And a lot of this has to do with the language that we use. So let's move on to the next concept, which is creating the language and crafting the language. And I'd like Robin to talk about this a little bit, because one of her responsibilities is making sure that we do have the right language in place that's going to work best on the call. And then many times the coaching that we do is based around using language correctly. Robin, tell us more about that.
Well, for crafting language, and this kind of ties in with closing during your call and how long your call is going to last. I think I'm notorious for very long calls, and it's not because I'm just talking and giving a bunch of information, but it's actually listening to the caller, asking different questions. If they're being quiet and they're not really saying anything, they just have one question, sentences that they're giving to you on the phone, you've got to dig a little bit deeper. Some of my calls where I'm closing and say I give a price, we decide on a size storage unit, that's going to work for them. I quote them on a price. I don't usually just go, okay, the best thing I can do is reserve it. I kind of take a step back to make sure that I overcome any concerns that could possibly come up at that point. My typical question is, so do you think that'll work for you? Because if at that point they say, well, that's a little bit high, or what else do you have, then I can ask questions like, would you prefer to go with a less expensive unit, for example, or would you prefer to go with something that's easy to get to? A lot of times when the callers are on the phone, they don't tell you what they're doing because they've never rented storage before, or they don't know that those options are available. So a lot of it is asking a lot of qualifying questions, and whether it's a yes/no question or if it's a specific, alternate choice question, drive-up unit or inside unit. Oddly enough, a lot of people prefer inside units because they're out of the weather. They don't want to have a drive-up where the door's on the outside. So I think a lot of it just really falls into asking questions and trying to figure out where your caller's at in the on the situation as far as what they're thinking and what they're looking for.
Tron, we have someone who asked the question, why has salesmanship nowadays seem to revolve more around pushing the customer instead of listening and helping, which really brings up a good point. How do you balance the questions you're asking without seeming pushy? How do you do that?
Well, you've probably heard one of the common themes that we all talk about is listening. If you listen to the prospect or the caller, you're going to hear what their concerns are. You're going to get lots of clues from their voice, and you're going to get lots of buying signs from them that will help you then move the call forward. So I think we spend a lot of time listening, and Lucia, I think in many aspects, you've got about the best ear in many times, because I've heard you change courses on calls many times. So tell us more about how that comes to play.
You have to hear what your callers want. So when you start asking questions, how soon do you need the unit, you are going to know if it's something immediately or they don't need until 2 weeks for now. What are they planning on storing? You know if there's something small is for business. What is important for them? That's a really, really important question, because you don't want to tell something that they don't want to hear. So it's really important that you get your callers the information they ask for.
All right, so I think an important thing you brought up is you said you've got to tell your callers what they want to hear. And you don't know what they want to hear until you ask them some questions. And I think there's also a big difference between being a pushy salesperson and being a confident salesperson. And I think where the difference comes into play is the people who don't have good coaching and good training often come off as being aggressive and pushy because they stumble around. Where the people who are the best salespeople, many times people don't notice they're salespeople. Their customers just buy a lot of stuff from them and would never consider them a salesperson. I know that's the way it is for me with many people I do business with. So I think that's a great question, but you know, it comes back again to listening, and then it also really has to do with how you craft the language. I mean, we are often trying to judge how the person speaks and use language that matches well with how they speak, and then find the best way to phrase a question. So, Evan, you ask people a lot of questions every day. Give us an example of a question that you've changed so that you'd get a better response with it. Or maybe you need to think about that a second, but I know there is one.
Right. Well, I mean, and that can be anything from, you know, like you were saying earlier, we have the benefit of people calling us. So you want to try and get that caller to respond to what you're selling to where they're going to sell them on what they'll sell themselves on what they're looking for, you know. So could be something simple as, you know, asking the caller what they have to store. You might, you know, ask a person, what are you storing? Well, if you just say, what are you storing, they may be taken back by that. They don't want to tell you everything they have. You know, they feel like you're being a little bit pushy. So if you can word it just a little bit different to where it's like, well, you know, maybe you could give me an idea of how many rooms, or if you have boxes, just so I can help you pick out the size that works for you. You know, and by wording it that way, you're showing them that you want to help them find what's going to meet their needs and provide the information to them that's going to help them get what they're looking for.
Right. And you've told them why you're asking the question,
right,
so they know you're trying to figure out a space. You're not being nosy about what they're storing.
Right, and
that makes a difference.
So you're being helpful, you know, and it kind of sets us apart with the conversation. If people are, you know, when people are looking for storage, they're calling maybe 5, 6, 7 different places and just getting prices. Well, when you get somebody on the phone that actually takes the time to ask the questions and show you that they actually care about what you're looking for, maybe that's going to get them to hang up the phone and not go on to the next place.
Right. Right. And to further answer that question, Poppy, one of the things that we talk about here in our selling rules is actually the first rule of selling is that you can't sell anybody anything. However, you can help people talk themselves into buying just about anything. So there's a big distinction there. And I think if you listen to our calls, what you hear is people talking themselves into storing with that particular store they're calling because they like how the conversation is going. But I think that's a really good question. And that brings us to the next point, which is setting the standard. So one of the things that we would be listening for is a particular sales rep trying to sell somebody something, or are they helping that caller talk themselves into making the purchase? And there's a big distinction there. And so that's one of the things that we look for. So Clarence, tell us a little bit about some of the standards that we look for in your experience as being a sales rep and helping with the call quality and getting coached. You've seen a lot of standards. Tell us a little bit about how we do that.
I think it all comes back to just about what everybody is saying, especially Julie and Robin, just looking for those buying signs. I mean, one thing that I've learned from Joel, Tim, Nikkita, a couple other coaches here, is that if you just ask one question, 9 times out of 10, the customer is going to tell you their whole story. I didn't get a chance to say it a few minutes ago, but everybody in the storage business is a counselor. I mean, and that's the way you have to look at it. You have to sympathize with that situation. You just like I said, you ask that one question, they'll tell you what's going on. My husband died. We're losing our place. Sympathize with that situation. That's a buying sign right there. That's a way for you to make a friend. That's a way in. You know what I'm saying? That's what you need right there. And I think some of the standards that we look for is just that. Well, hey, we're losing our house. Hey, we definitely understand that your things are going to be safe and secure here. My father just died and we need to store his stuff. Hey, I do apologize for hearing that. You know, we send our condolences, but guess what? You know, you can believe in us that your things are going to be safe. We've got the pest control here, so forth and so on and whatnot. Another standard to look for is just security. You know what I'm saying? Well, I want my things to be safe. You know what I'm saying? Well, sure, we've got the access control gate here, so forth and whatnot. It's just all about the buying signs. It's actually listening to what the customer is looking for.
Right. So, Julie, tell us a little bit about how we set the bar for new people coming in, because a lot of people don't know this, but not a lot of people make it through our training program. Because early on, some of them realize, oh my gosh, I actually have to work at this. Others go, wow, I'm going to have to really stretch my own abilities here and really learn how to do this. And then, believe it or not, once in a while people come to work for us who think they don't want to work for us, which is, you know, unbelievable for us. So, tell us a little bit about how we set the bar and what we look for.
Well, one of the things we do when we hire people is, of course, we've got a whole interview process, which could be a webinar all on its own, how you get that person to the hiring process. But once they become a member of the team and they're in training, first thing we're looking for is we're looking at, are they engaged and are they willing to listen? Because if they're not willing to listen to us as our coaches and trainers, they're not going to be willing to listen to the callers. So first thing, if they're not willing to listen, they're not going to work out as a salesperson. Then we're going to give them information, we're going to help them, we're going to role play. If there is one thing I would recommend you have in your coaching process is role playing. Practice is worth a lot. And one of the other things we do besides role playing is we make people write out their answers as they would say them. So every day in the training process, they have worksheets. They have to answer questions as if they're talking to a caller, because this really shows us that they understand the language that they're using. It really shows us that they're hearing what we're telling them and that they're able to regurgitate it back to us and that they understand. So listening really is the main weeding out factor in our training process. Are they able to listen, hear, and then give that information back, whether it's to a caller, to a role player, or to a trainer or coach?
All right. Well, and then one of the things that we do to keep our standard up is we secret shop our reps. We hire Skill Check. Some of you may be familiar with them. They're a mystery shopping, telephone secret shopping company that's been serving self-storage for many years. They call us during the month. They have a set number of shops they do. They call in and secret shop our reps. And we set up a simple but effective score sheet, and we want everyone to score 100% on their secret shop call. And that is another way that we can double check what we're doing on our coaching side and also be able to maintain a clear and simple standard of what the call needs to be like, what our sales reps need to sound like, and that's been a very effective tool for us to use. So every month people know chances are they're going to get a skill check call, and then we'll see what it looks like. And then aside from that, we're scoring our own calls internally, and Joel, maybe you can tell us just for a few minutes a little bit about how that looks.
Sure. Ron, let me just ask a question real quick before you move on. PhoneSmart does offer mystery calling shopping services to customers as well. Is that not correct?
That's right. We offer that service as well, and we pass those on to Skill Check to actually fulfill that. Okay. So they've become our secret shopping partner, which has really freed up a lot of time for us and allowed us to make sure that our clients are getting really the best quality shops done quickly. So we'd be glad to help coordinate that for anyone who's looking to continue their quality improvement. So go ahead, Joel. Tell us a little bit more about that.
So with the evaluation process, we want to make sure that every rep gets a fair number of evaluations by our coaches. We just have once again, a simple process. We're not trying to look for anything crazy. We just want to make sure they're friendly. They ask enough questions to be able to help the customer, try to close the sale and make a friend, and then wrap up the call. Tell the customer what the next steps are. It's very, very simple. And then, of course, you want to make sure, in addition to that evaluation process, you have some face time with your rep. I think that face time is good. You both listen to the call. You both see and hear different things, and you talk about it. I think sometimes just the evaluation is not enough. You also need the face-to-face time where you can talk about what you both heard and able to move on from there and see what the next steps are.
And so that's a perfect transition into the last step of this, which is to just spend the time. So it's not enough to do a call evaluation, but you have to spend the time doing the call evaluation and then doing the coaching based on that. And so what percentage of time do you think our reps are spending being coached right now?
I'd say quite a bit. I mean,
some days it's probably 15%, isn't it?
Yeah, it depends on, I mean, ultimately the answer rate is our our biggest rate,
But actually we had some days last week where there was no time for anything.
Right.
Reservation.
And hey, that can be a good thing. We don't mind making money on the phones, right? But yeah, and to touch on what Joel said too with the evaluation process, another big part of it too, and with spending the time, is to do it quickly. Don't wait until 4 or 5 days after this person has taken a call to evaluate that call. We try and stay on a course to where we're doing at least 1 or 2 every day for our reps. And if if there is an issue or there is a problem that comes up in that, get with your rep as soon as possible while it's fresh in their mind, correct it, give them the right language, or help them to understand why that didn't work and give them the language that can work. Do it quickly so that they can implement that as soon as possible, and it's fresh in their mind to change it.
That's a great point. So,
Ron, for the managers that are really, their goal is to refine their skills, maybe before we wrap up, if each of your counselors could go through and just offer the most important bit of advice that they would have for managers who are handling their own calls.
Sure. Would you like to start with that? Clarence, why don't you start? We'll run around the table and give everybody a quick tip for that.
I think for managers that are trying to or taking their own calls, I just think the number one thing would just be to listen to the caller, sympathize with their situation, and assume the sale.
Yeah.
Wow, one tip to, I got like 10 one-on-one session.
If you talk fast, we'll take more than one.
Well, I was just thinking it's not like, I don't know, I brought, not like high energy selling, but just like a good energy, just like, I'm here to help, you're speaking clearly, you're, like Claire said, listening to the caller, and then something that, if you're looking for something to try, I like to try to, not stop talking on a call unless you ask a question. So like, for example, you say, we have a price of $89 a month, which is a great rate for the area. First month is free. And then you just stop, and a lot of reps do that. But instead of doing that, don't end any statement without asking a question. So, for example, there you would say, first month's free, and when could you make it in? Did you say this Friday would work out for you? So maybe end everything with a question. I don't know. That's all I got.
Julie.
I think one of the things that managers could implement starting today, without any training at all, is really smiling on their greeting. The difference that your voice tone is between not having a smile on your face and having a smile on your face is huge. And you can start off today with the next phone call that you take. Stand up from your chair, put a smile on your face. You'll sound energized, and you'll stop doing whatever it was you were working on before, and you're going to pay attention to that caller, and you're going to be engaged with that caller. So that is a simple tip, and it can start immediately.
Thank you.
That's a great idea.
My biggest tip is educating the caller on the phone as much as I can, and that's my little niche, I think, is just talking to the customer and explaining. For example, if they seemed rushed and they want to get off the phone, they just want to get a price, and they just want specific questions to ask, I have to kind of stop and go, well, okay, let me ask you this question. It's kind of, and I think I'm going back to the one question you had earlier about closing and not seeming like you're being an aggressive salesperson. Let me ask you this. For example, say if somebody wants climate control. We don't offer climate control. I'm not going to just let them go. I want them to come to my store no matter what. So one of my questions would be, let me ask you this. If you can't find XYZ, a climate control unit anywhere else, are you still going to need a storage unit? Because if I can get that caller to think on the phone at that moment of things that they haven't thought of before they hung up, it's going to build a better rapport with the caller because they're going to trust you that you're giving them the information that they probably don't know already. So that's, I think, one of my niches right there is just to ask questions, but doing it in a conversational way. You don't want to just say, if you can't find climate control, do you still need storage? You want to kind of throw out those little transitional phrases. Let me ask you a question if you don't mind. Just kind of curious, what if? And I think that's probably one of my biggest selling points there.
Thank you. Nikkita.
I would say confidence. Just go into it with knowing that you assume the sale, and just one of my big things that I go for every time, which helps me, is just go for it. If you get a no, okay, try to overcome it, but just go for it at the end of the call every time. Just go for it.
Lucia.
I think it's confidence. You have to believe yourself that you have the best facility, the best security, that your price is the best one in the area. If you're going to transfer that with your voice to the caller. If you believe yourself that you are the best one, the customer most of the time is going to buy for you. It's going to say yes. Also, your tone inflation, because you are going to transfer the price. If you say the price is $100, it's different if you say the price is only $100, which one is a great price. So you are going to transfer that in your voice and assume the sale. That's really important.
Joel, what do you think?
Every customer is different. Yes, we all are experts. We've taken lots of calls. We've helped many people. But just because one customer had a similar situation does not mean that that customer is the same as this customer. So make sure every new customer you talk to, treat them as if you haven't taken a call that day or you haven't talked to anybody else that day. Make them feel special. Make them feel that the world is wrapped around them. And that would just make them feel like you really care and you're listening to them, and they will rent from you.
Excellent. Evan?
Yeah, this kind of touches on what Tim and Robin said, kind of, because you do have to listen to the caller, but something Robin and I have done with our team is what we're calling the 2-second rule. Whenever you're selling to people, it's very easy to keep talking and to try and overload them with information. So with a couple of our reps that tend to do that a little too much and talk a little bit too much, we're trying to do the 2-second rule, which is once your customer finishes asking you a question or saying something, give them 2 seconds, make sure they're finished, then come back with what you want to say, and either like Tim said, end on a question or present more information, try and keep going with the call. But that'll give it that conversational feel, like you're not just bullying them with information.
That's great. That's great. Well, thanks, everyone. Poppy, any other questions from you or the crew? I don't know. We're getting down to just a few minutes left, aren't we?
We are. We're wrapping up, and I think we had a lot of great tips that you gave to the listeners today. As a reminder, Tron and his team will be at the SSA show in Las Vegas in September. If you have any questions, you're going to be there, feel free to stop by their booth, and if not, give Tron a call or give one of his team members a call, and I'm sure they'll be happy to help you. We'd like to thank any other closing thoughts you have, Tron, before we wrap up?
Well, it's just been a pleasure to get everybody together around the table, and I hope those of you who dialed in felt like you were sitting at the table with us, and we hope to see you in Las Vegas or somewhere else out on the trade show circuit.
We'd like to thank everyone for attending, and as a reminder, you will be receiving an email with a link to this archived presentation. We'll also be including a special offer for Tron's book, Rent It Up. If you'd like to register for any of our upcoming webinars or view any of our archived webinars, you can do so by visiting ministoragemessenger.com. We'd like to thank you again for attending, and hope that we'll see all of you either at Tron's booth or at the MiniCo booths at the SSA show. Thanks so much and have a wonderful day.
Great. See you in a few weeks. Thanks very much.